found friends at the airport. Now we're on a road trip. Only 2 hours across the length of St Lucia.
Only 2 hours.
Only 2 hours. How long's the distance?
It's an hour and a half.
No, but in distance.
Well, distance.
How many kilometres or miles? 28 kilometres? 38. 38 kilometres, 2 hours. We'll get there.
Yeah, the traffic got tough, so our roads are really small.
They are small, but it's beautiful. That's the main thing. Ah, here's my little home away from home for a few days. It's awesome. It's got a washing machine. That's the best part. A stroll up to Darren Sammy Cricket Ground. What an awesome venue. I love this place. Thankfully, there's a breeze and it's much cooler than it has been all day. Hello everyone and welcome to the second episode of Running Between the Wickets with me, Melinda Farrell, giving you an insight into what it's like to rush around like an absolute crazy maniac trying to cover cricket around the world here at the Men's T20 World Cup in the Caribbean and the US. Last time I spoke to you, I was still in Barbados, currently in St Lucia, about to go to Antigua, but I did manage to pop over to New York for 4 days for 4 of the matches there. It was an interesting time getting there actually, because my flight from Barbados to New York was delayed by 5 hours. Well, I'm here at the airport in Barbados, Bridgetown. Supposed to be getting a 5 a.m. flight to New York to get to India, Pakistan, of course. That's on today. But got a message saying the flight had been delayed until 8:45, so nearly 4 hours, which sucks. And yeah, they did ask us still to come early in case they were able to get things back on track. But they're telling me no, it will be 8:45. So I've had about 3.5 hours sleep, and now I'm at the airport for about 4 hours, just waiting to see if possibly they might be able to go earlier. Who knows? Maybe there might be a couple of showers in New York. Delay the game. Not like badly, but look, just a couple of hours. Hold off and maybe I can get there. I don't know. Who knows? The race is on. Can I get there? Can I get to India, Pakistan? We'll see. I was supposed to land about an hour before the match started, so it was always going to be tight to get there for the start of it. But yes, it was delayed by 5 hours, which was unbelievably frustrating and cost me a day's work and a day's pay from a couple of different people, because I was supposed to be getting some material from that. I mean, I did get there, but I left 5 hours early, and so by the time we'd left, the game was basically starting. But it was a funny experience because the woman sitting next to me, her name was Sadita, and then there was Dylan next to her as well. She was a cricket fan, and we ended up realizing that Gary, who was sitting in front of us, was able to get it on the Wi-Fi somehow, because my Wi-Fi wasn't working for at least part of the trip. So we ended up watching it together with almost our heads perched one on top of the other through a crack in the seat, and Gary had obligingly turned his large phone towards us so that we could watch it between the seats. So that was great. It would go in and out, but I was seeing the wickets fall as I went. And then when I landed, I had to leave my luggage, find the luggage at a terminal. I was running between terminals 4 and 5 to try and find the luggage storage. As it turns out, Sammy, who works at the luggage storage at JFK Airport, is originally from Bangladesh and a massive cricket fan. So when he realized my predicament, he took my phone from me. He was entering all the information that I needed to store my luggage and got it done in double quick time, and was unbelievably helpful. Then I jumped into a taxi. I don't even want to think about how much it cost. Ranbir was my driver.
Can't believe this. I have landed. I'm on my way. Apparently it's 40 minutes. I don't know if I'm going to make a single over, but I feel like I have to try, having gone this far. I'm very lucky to have Ranbir driving me. He's actually just put it on an iPad in the front seat, so at least I can see what's going on. Unbelievable. Screw you, JetBlue. Screw you.
We got to the ground, unbelievable levels of security, about 7 layers of security to actually get into the ground. I've never seen anything like it in my life, but finally got in, walked into the press box for the last 3 overs. But hey, the last 3 overs in a close match are always the most important, right? So I did get there technically. I didn't see a lot of it. It was a bit frustrating, but you know, it's all about the friends you meet along the way. Unfortunately, I had to then head all the way back to the airport to pick up my bag and then go to my accommodation, which it turns out Long Island's bigger than you think. And it turns out I was a lot further away from the ground than I had originally anticipated. My fault. I should have actually checked the distances and worked things out. So taxis ended up being my main expense and were quite expensive, but they had lunch boxes at the ground, and there were leftover ones every day. So I was able to take a lunchbox home for dinner each night. So that was cool. But the other thing that did happen that was wonderful being in New York was that I was able to catch up with Jimmy O'Brien, a.k.a. JohnBoy. Amazing story, really. Jimmy did spend some time in Australia as a kid. He's obviously grown up in America. And so he knew about cricket, but then kind of became really into it a few years ago, about 3 years ago. He'd started his incredibly successful JomBoy media company, doing podcasts and lots of videos and social media stuff and a lot of breakdowns. And he started doing cricket breakdowns. I thought they were fantastic. And last year, I retweeted one last year. And not long after, I got this random message from JohnBoy asking if I would come over to New York in March and commentate on their Ball in Play tournament. Ball in Play is a mashup of cricket and baseball played in a warehouse, invented by Jimmy, JohnBoy, and it's part of what they call the warehouse games. So I said, sure, why not? I had some big shoes to fill because Darren Sammy had done the first couple of them. Look, he's won 2 World Cups. I've covered 8 or 9 men's and women's World Cups. So, no, they were big shoes to fill. But I arrived, and I have to say those 4 days were, that was probably the most fun I reckon I've had on a gig. They were an incredible bunch of people. It was tough work because I didn't know the sport apart from bits I'd seen on YouTube. Didn't know any but a couple of players who they were. But my co-commentator Chris Rose was great, and Jimmy and his entire team were fantastic.
Oh, that's sick!
Talking to scary.
I think that's the closest we've come.
Oh, I was ready. No, I wasn't. I was cowering behind you, but sort of ready.
By the way, don't be scared. It's not a grenade. It's a soft ball.
I'm used to cricket balls coming at me.
I know. I saw that viral video of you taking that shot.
Yeah.
Wasn't that from the team captain?
New Zealand captain Tim Southey. Yeah, got me in the back.
So that was a wonderful experience. And then as things would have it, and you'll find out a little bit more of this if you listen to the podcast, it ended up that Jimmy was commentating at the at this tournament, at the ICC Men's T20 World Cup. The only American, never commentated on cricket before, never done any of that kind of live commentary before. He was really the conduit for cricket to try and make it accessible to an American audience, and in particular a baseball audience. So I was so chuffed when I got to New York and saw Jimmy, and I'm just so pleased for him because he's a great guy who's done wonderful things, absolutely loves cricket, and I think is actually really important to cricket's mission to kind of crack the US, that they need all the help they can get, and he's a really good one in making it accessible. So we were going to try and do this in person, but we can't record or film within the ground because of rights issues, and we ended up not being able to make it work, largely because Jimmy was exhausted after he'd been commentating. He did an absolutely terrific job too. But we did manage to catch up over Zoom once I got here to St Lucia. And so I really hope you enjoy this chat with Jomboy.
I'm going to go into a room that has better acoustics because I'm in the conference room.
Okay.
It'd be echoey.
Oh, I remember that office.
Yeah.
Oh. Is anyone else in there as you walk?
Yeah. Say hi.
Oh, Jake.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. That was sad note. Hey, I miss you all. I miss you all.
All right. I don't know what they're debating, but it seemed they were debating something of no importance.
Oh,
which
wow.
I'm proud of.
Have they all been getting into the T20 World Cup?
Some have, some like think Jake's always on mic when it's happening, but they've like had it on in the office. I would have had US on if they played today, the whole time.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, it's so exciting. They've made the Super 8s. I've actually I'm writing a piece now. I had a really good chat with the coach Stuart Law. And he gave me some great insight into the team. He had a really good story about Father Shea as well. So that was really nice. Yeah, so I'm excited. I'll be there when they come to Antigua. So that's really cool.
I'm excited. I hope they are in some games. They play South Africa first, I think.
Yeah, they do. That's in Barbados. That'll be massive. But yeah,
Well, hopefully all those quicks get slowed down by pitches or something.
yeah, it's going to be, it'll be tough, but they'll compete. I reckon they'll compete. Thanks so much for joining me, Jimmy. We tried to do this in New York when I was still there, but you basically were about to fall asleep after doing your commentary stint. What was it like? Was it what you expected it to be?
I'm happy to be here. And yeah, sorry I had to push. I was very tired. It was good. Was it what I expected? No. But it was really good. It was way out of my comfort zone, which is was kind of a realization that I haven't done anything out of my comfort zone in a long time. My wife said, yeah, you built a whole world of your comfort zone, building my own company. I said, yeah, that's true. Okay. It's kind of nice, but so it was what I expected in some ways because it was new and different and I was an outsider and I felt like not in control of everything. And that was weird. But then it was really cool to be in a different community and meet new people, and everyone was really kind, and to be the only American voice. So just like culturally, like the learnings and like conversations were so fun. As far as like being on the broadcast, I thought it was going to be more where I come in and deliver a package. I didn't know I would just be sitting as a third for stints on comms, and that was primarily what it was. We weren't able to figure out how to deliver packages We did do a couple and it was good, but I thought to get it like in my voice, the way I do the breakdowns, like I don't think we were able to do that on air, which I don't even know if we would ever be able to do that on air.
Yeah,
So
because the T20 goes really quick, right? So there's not a lot of time.
really quick, and yeah, there's a lot in your ear. You know, there's an Indian man counting, you ignore him. There's a British woman counting, you have to listen to her. Then you have the director calling all the shots, which they don't have that in US broadcasts. You don't hear any, you only hear the director or producer when they chime in. You don't have the constant chatter. And then, yeah, the flow of it was so bizarre because obviously the last ball of the over, you go to break, you score it. And then we talked through breaks.
Yeah.
But not every broadcast hears that conversation. So you have to have a tidy conversation there and pause it. And then you come out of the break and you start a new conversation. So I actually loved that window of break, but that probably wasn't going out to that many people. I don't know what people had, maybe the streaming people that didn't have commercials and that just stayed with the booth, because everywhere else went to commercial. But that's where I would really chime up and start having like ask questions and discussions. But I realized, oh shit, that's not going out to that many people. But all the rhythm of it was hard for me the first couple days. And I don't know if I ever mastered it, but I was lucky. Ebony was so nice and like, no. Okay. And like looking at each other and talking, but like you said, it goes fast. So at one point, Ebony was trying to throw it to me for this conversation we had prepped, but it was like, no, Ebony, this graphic. And we had to do this graphic. And then it was like, no, we're going to do this magic moment. And then no. So it was like a couple times before we got it in, but that was really fun. The broadcast side, learning how it works was really enjoyable for me because I like the tech in that world.
Yeah. And you look like you were having so much fun talking to people who you've done breakdowns on, which has been weird. Like you were there chatting with Steve Smith for the last game.
Yeah, and Ricky Ponting a lot of games. Steiny was awesome. That was wild because I almost feel like it's rude because I didn't grow up idolizing these people because I didn't grow up in watching cricket. So it wasn't the big deal that it would be to so many people who, you know, are listening, the audience of cricket. But then that probably made it much easier for me just to have a conversation. Like if that was me and I'm gonna name some baseball players like Jeter, A-Rod, and David Ortiz do the Fox commentary. If I was there with them, I think I'd be a lot more like, not knowing what to say because I grew up watching them, or I'd ask questions that were so on the nail and so like in the weeds that it would annoy them. But because all my questions were like from this new perspective, it's like why I enjoy talking baseball to them, because that entry level just curiosity is much more easier than, you know, a diehard fan coming up to you and being like, what do you think about this, and asking all the controversies. But yeah, it was wild. And they were really, really nice. Like Wasim Akrams just spent a bunch of time with us and we got to talk with him and it was cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's an incredible thing that you've achieved in being able to do this. And I've loved listening to it because I just think you're the perfect like translator. I think is sort of a great way to see your role in making this whole thing easier for American audiences to understand who aren't familiar with it. I'm wondering what kind of response have you got from fans? Because I've seen your warehouse community, so many people saying, I'm watching the T20 World Cup now.
Yeah, I didn't look at, I'll go and look at comments for most part because I like communicating and being in the chat and just talking. I didn't do that for the first couple of days because I was just like, I don't feel good I didn't feel horrible about what I had done, but I just didn't feel like I was bringing anything to the table that was new or different. So I avoided, and I've gone in a couple times, or if I get tagged in things. So I've seen nice things. I'm sure there's people that are like, get this dude out of here. But the response from everyone in the building and producers and from the ICC was really that they were enjoying it, and that it did add a new element. So that's good. And our audience is always very kind to me, which is really, really nice. And not just to me, to anyone that is working with JohnBoy Media that we bring in. Like, as you know, like we have a very welcoming, and my mantra is don't sit on compliments, because I'm not one to naturally just go gush and compliment people all the time. So it's like, fuck, if I think of, if something pops in my head that's nice, I should just blurt it out, because I'm not walking into a room saying, "Oh, I love your shoes. Oh, look at your hair." So
Yeah, I'm in St Lucia and it's very humid here, so I know my hair's bad. But yeah, you're right. One of the things I noticed, so for those who watch this or listen to this podcast who weren't aware, I did commentate for Jimmy during his, let's say, indoor cricket baseball mashup sport that he's invented called ball in play, as part of the warehouse games. Is played in a warehouse in New Jersey. And I showed up, was picked up at the airport in a black van and taken to that warehouse in Jersey. And I had so much fun. I was a bit like you, though. I was coming in to a sport where I didn't know anybody. I didn't know what the sport was. I was like, it's a really vulnerable feeling, isn't it? But everyone was so kind.
I have much more empathy now going through it myself, and just way more kind of respect and admiration to you and to Pavel Barber, who's done it for our floorball, and a learning of what we can do better to make that a little easier. We are a welcoming bunch, so we always do say, like, hey, there's not that much prep you can do for this place. It's crazy. Just get them in there, and like, it'll overtake them. Our energy should overtake. But to put you on mic right away and say, okay, call these games, I can't believe how daunting that must have been now, especially. So I just have a ton of respect that you did that, and then got really, as each day went on, got more and more comfortable in the fun.
Yeah, I did. And no, I was lucky to have Chris Rose with me, who's just an absolute genius. Is this experience, is this the most vulnerable that you've ever felt professionally?
Yeah, definitely. Because the other things that I've done would be like, I get, when I got asked to go on ESPN, or asked to go on as like, just a interviewee, talking head. And but I'm always talking about my business or the Yankees, baseball, that's every day. I don't even have vocal conversations about cricket. It's all just online. So it's not, there's so many things that like you can type, but I don't know how to pronounce them, or like sometimes like is that the right sentence structure? But I read it that way, or like what is just like internet shit talk, and what is like something that you actually talk about. You know what I mean? Like in baseball, some idiom or like some like sayings and stuff. If someone could say them to me, like, oh, that's not actually like it. That's just kind of like what shitty fans say. But that's how I felt. Like I was like, I didn't want to like get anything wrong. So it was definitely the most vulnerable I felt professionally. For sure. I'm trying to think if there's any other times. The only other time would be for the Yankees sports network. Jake and I did their pregame show, their batting practice show, which was live in a studio. And I had to wear a collared shirt and no hat. And that sounds so silly to so many people, but not being able to wear my comfort clothes is so hard for me. So like just being in a collared shirt and my gray hair and no hat, and like when I see it back, I'm like, that's not me. Like I'm just watching this vlog, the like day in the life, and I'm just like, oh, that's not how I see myself. So I'm just like itchy, the whole time.
Yeah, well, because you were expressing your discomfort when I saw you at the games, at the fact, because you were wearing the very nice ICC uniform.
Yeah.
Shirt, and I thought you looked very smart. So,
Yeah, it just feels like a costume.
Yeah.
It feels like, dress up.
You look's great, but you look. I do tend to associate more with your cap and your t-shirt as well.
Yeah.
Well, for those who might not know about how you actually started and how you got involved with this, can you just give us a bit of an idea? So obviously I did a story on you before the World Cup started, and we sat down in New York and chatted. But how do you go from basically deciding to talk crap on a podcast to having a huge media empire that employs 60 people and is near the Empire State Building?
Well, one of our mottos, it used to be on our wall. We had it redone because we had to change a couple of our mottos. But one of the mottos that I've always had, even when we were little, was don't burn a bridge that hasn't been built yet. So I always say, like, all the opportunities that we've had have come to us. We're not really going and seeking new land, but we're also not just burning down our surroundings. So we've got ourselves, and our audience has allowed us to put ourselves in this situation where they see the community we've built, the response we get, and they say, hey, like, maybe we should tap into that. So that's how, like, baseball and opportunities with Yes Network, or opportunities with, some of the other partnerships we've done or investments, has always been. And when I started doing cricket videos, Nate Hayes, umpire Nate, he reached out and he was like, hey, this is awesome. I've wanted you to get into cricket forever. There's a new league coming. There's the World Cup coming. And this was in 2021. So I kind of knew that these opportunities were coming. I have a text exchange with Jake from November of 2021, like, hey, I really am enjoying this. And I think because they're going to try to come to the US in 2 years, like, we can position ourselves to be part of the World Cup and Major League Cricket. I showed that text exchange to Maddie recently. He was like, whoa, like, I didn't realize you had that in mind. And I was like, well, it was just like, this opportunity is a possibility. Like, so I just kept making cricket videos because I enjoyed it, and I kept watching it, and I would find something interesting, and it was growing a new audience. So I could tell by the numbers that the videos wouldn't have like the same amount of returning viewers that come for baseball breakdowns, but it would have a decent chunk, but it would have so many new viewers that had never been to our YouTube page before would be coming. So I was like, well, this is gaining a new audience. And then through Nate, we worked with MLC on the first ball and play, or some first warehouse stuff, where Corey Anderson, Liam Plunkett, Aaron Jones, and Smit Patel came. 4 players MLC sent our way. And it was like really like the second thing we ever filmed in the warehouse. Like, it was really shitty place. It's on YouTube. You can watch it. And then we did like a mock first season with some amateur, like under 18 cricket players that play in minor league cricket that are local. And Darren Sammy was on comms for those. And that was just through MLC and Nate, just like kind of making connections for us. And then Darren couldn't. And then the next season, we got 6 more players join, and Darren did, and then he couldn't. And then you were recommended, and I'd seen that you had interacted on Twitter and stuff, and Cricket District. So like the connections have just been built and built and built to, it was a good, because when ICC reached out, they had you to say, hey, you've met him. What's he been like? Or, hey, you've worked with him. And we had built these like relationships in our own warehouse. So I guess all of that came together to where they weren't scared to invite me on.
Yeah, I actually remember, look, I'm taking some credit, a very small
Yeah,
piece
you
of
should.
credit for you being there, because I think there was a communication mix-up. And when I was in South Africa for the Under-19s World Cup, and Ajesh, who is the head of broadcasting, asked me what I was doing after, and I said I was coming to New York to commentate for you, and he sort of said, yeah, reached out to them, but I can't get to Jimmy himself, and I think I've kind of lost patience. And I was like, hold that thought, just stay there, just don't do anything. And I immediately went away, and I was messaging you on Twitter to say, here's his number, here's the email address, think you should give him a call.
Yeah, no, you definitely get a lot of credit.
If only I could do that for myself, man. It'll happen one day. But it was so good that it happened. Now, with ball in play and that whole tournament. I mean, have you seen people, again, I see comments on your YouTube channel but that people are saying, you know, I wasn't interested in cricket before, but I'm kind of becoming more interested now. Have you seen a bit of that?
Yeah, a lot of that. And Nate just sent me from the Florida stadium today. They were doing the in-house stadium videos of fans, and they said, "What brought you here?" And I guess these guys said we watched ball and play and then wanted to see it live.
Oh,
My goal with ball and play was to make an entertaining product for our audience, because I thought that the running and throwing of cricket would add a new element we don't get in our original sport, blitzball. But I did make it the active decision. My editing staff at the time suggested a scoreboard that was more hybrid, because the cricket bug, you guys don't call it a score bug, you call it a
well, I still call it a bug from when I.
They were using a different
I don't
term.
know what you mean. They use they have the score graphic.
Yeah, they wanted to make like a simpler one, and I said no, I don't want to change that, because if people can understand how to read it, I think it's the best way to read the game and understand it, and will sneak them, now they know cricket. So I think that was an active decision. And some of the terminology I wanted to be the same, like dot ball. They were like, let's just say 0. And I was like, no, call it a dot ball. Like, I want people to know. And I got a tweet the other day. I was like, I was driving by the park and I saw these guys playing cricket, and I knew that was a dot ball. And so we've just like snuck this info into our audience, which I do think is genuinely important if you want to grow the game, because adults don't like learning. And with sports, like, when did you learn what an over was? If I ask an American, when did you learn it's 3 strikes, batter's out? They would just kind of say, I don't like,
No.
it's in your TV, it's in your cartoons, it's in your songs, it's just in your life, the basic rules of baseball. But we don't have that with cricket, so it's more daunting. So I do think the sneak attack approach of like, well, this is cricket. Sometimes like I would say like silly point, and then they would be like, it's this made up position. I said, no, that is a real term. That's a real position. Or I'd say like 4-run boundary ball. And they'd be like, that's really, if it just hits the boundary, it's 4 runs. I'm like, yeah, like, yes, you know, a lot of cricket if you watch ball and play.
Yeah. That's one thing that I thought was really great, the different terminology that was used, and we had some quite crickety situations as well. We also had a wonderful moment when one of the players tried to tag someone out.
Yeah, we've had that every season.
It was so funny. But there was a wonderful moment when you think about ball in play during the US-India game, where you had, Father Shay or Cheyenne Jahangir was out there, and so was Aaron Jones. They're out there on the field. You're in the commentary box, and I was in the press box. And I was sitting there going, wow, like only a few months ago, we were kind of doing all of this in the warehouse, and now this is a World Cup. This is wild, right?
Yeah, that was really when Jones got that big knock, and he got 94 and won that first game. It was like the hero of the game. That gave me chills a little bit, because I was like, whoa, I'm not one for universe and karma or any of that mysticism stuff. But that felt to me like, fuck, like we've just lined up our dominoes in a great place. And this is the result of networking and meeting good people. And I have no idea, because so many people were tweeting like, I tuned into this because of ball and play at game 1, and the hero for the US is Aaron Jones, who I know is the only cricket player I fucking know in this, and I'm like, that's something special that all of that happened for everyone.
Yeah, well, it does, even though it's a massive world, there are incredible connections I find all the way. I mean, I going to be talking to a lot of people about, as they go around life on the road. I mean, your road is basically from your home to the middle of Manhattan, right?
Yeah, that's about all I do. Just going back. I was laughing when Narrowly asked for she asked someone else for a restaurant recommendation, and then she said, I pegged you for someone that stays in and eats with the family. And I said, well, good job. You know your people. Um,
But I think one of the
house
things,
to train to office. That's it.
yeah, but I think one of the things we share is I've certainly been talking to the listeners about the difficulty for me when I'm freelance in juggling different people when I'm working for multiple people and how I try and keep that straight in my head. But I was kind of wondering how you do that, because you have so much going on now. And how do you go about keeping it all straight in your head?
I don't know. I have a good ability to keep a lot of things going in my head at once. It's been taking its toll a little bit recently. Like I knew that June was going to be crazy. We had 2 warehouse tournaments. The ICC events were, over the weekends. So, I haven't had an off day since May 30th, or, a day to just be with the kids and help my wife all day. But people that are on the road, it's even worse because they don't get to go home and see them and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I have executive assistant who helps with things. I have Ryan who assists me on all social stuff, but then I have all the crap I got to do. So in the last 3 weeks, I've had 3 days in the office and I have to jam 3 weeks worth of editing. And then because it's such a big opportunity, there's been so much outreach, which is exactly what we wanted. We knew we were going to do this for the exposure and all that. So we're trying to say yes to every interview. So, there's a documentary crew filming me today while it works. There's another one coming Monday. And then later next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm in the warehouse every day. So it's been crazy. I have one off dates tomorrow, but it's my daughter's 1-year birthday party. So it's like a stressful off day of getting the house ready and prepared. And luckily we have family that came out and helped. But yeah, I've always been good at multitasking. I'm starting to push it to the limit.
Yeah. Then who's your executive assistant?
Kiana.
Kiana, right. And Sam, I know Sam Taskey also does a great
Yeah,
job.
Sam did that role for a while. So Sam is basically like producer of warehouse games, where if
Yeah,
I'm
he's amazing.
executive
She's
director
amazing.
or whatever the terms would be. But yeah, I have a really good team. It's just, there's certain things that I have to do, edit and record, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
hectic.
So your experience in the cricket world, does that mean that you want to keep it going? And how
Yeah,
would you like to keep it going?
I don't know. We'll keep it going naturally. Like when I see things I'm interested in, I'll keep making videos on them. And then if there's opportunities presented, it'll just be the same as always, balancing out that time of year. And if I'm available, this time of year was June. So it's the middle of baseball season, but it's early, and it's a 6-month season. So, but September, October are kind of like no-go like months. Like that's nope, I can't be taken out from this. So that'll be the balance. I don't think we're actively going to pursue anything that much. Like I don't know if I can't start a podcast. So like it couldn't be me at the forefront if we wanted to start like everyday cricket coverage. So it'll just be the same as I've been doing and making connections through the warehouse and ball and play, and then any one-off opportunities that get presented, I'd love to do them as long as it fits into the calendar.
Yeah. And do you think that especially with the success of Team USA, now that they've made it to the Super 8s, I have this theory that if there's one thing Americans love, it's a winner. Do you think that it could make an impact now that they've gone through to a seriously massive stage of this?
Yeah, it's a little hard because they can't find the games. You got to get Willow, but what's cool is that it's being picked up by ESPN, by Fox, by CBS. Aaron Jones told me he did like a crazy amount of interviews. I'm going to keep covering them as long as they go, and I'm available to. So yeah, I think people are more tuned in. People like bragging about stuff. So hopefully they can be in some of the games out there. I do think like you're not all of a sudden going to develop cricketers that never played the sport. That has to start at the youth level and it takes 20 years. People that really are here and never even heard of it, but now they're developing players. But it should, I mean, the US should now be an area where we have a huge expat community that grew up playing it or knows it, that maybe that gets a little more serious. You know, like Netravelkar got back into the game playing on his weekends in the park, and then realized he still had a love for the game, and then saw that there was a Team USA, you know, went. There's probably a lot of talent out there that didn't realize there's higher avenues in the US to get to, or maybe there's 12-year-old kids that are like, oh, I can take this more seriously now instead of just playing with my family when we get together. So that's a fun move in the right direction. And then also it's 3 years. If you spend like 30 months out of the last 36 in the US, you can be on Team USA. So all the players that miss out on their country, I think, are going to try and do the 3-year contract that minor league cricket offers. So there might be more talent. And the longer you're good at something, the more influence you'll have over youth and people to pick it up and play it.
Yeah, and of course it's on in the LA Olympics in 4 years' time as well. So I know that they've got some big plans for getting kids playing it in the lead up to that. And I mean, just one other thing that that I was going to ask you is just for people who are listening, you say don't burn bridges when they don't exist. Was that really what? Because you told me early that you basically had $20,000 as an investment to start.
25 to start, yeah.
Yeah, 25, and you basically kind of just went with it and then got Jake on board. So
yeah.
Your time took a huge risk with that. Is that something you have to be prepared to do? It's something maybe not everyone is able to do, but what made you think that you could actually do it with such a small start?
I don't know. I was 28 and I didn't have like a career. So I thought at best I'd take a year off and I build it to big enough to be a part-time job. And I go back to doing like wedding videography or corporate videography and have 2 jobs. In my heart of hearts, I knew that would devastate me. It's what I told everyone, but in my heart, I knew if it didn't work out and I wasn't able to do something full-time, all I wanted was to make 60 grand a year talking about sports, and it just kept going. So it was also, I just had nothing to lose at that point. And I felt like it was one last shot before I got to 30, and that would be, I would have to cave and go get like a higher paying job doing videography where I had to commute to the city and have no hobbies. So that I always had a lower paying job because I had ambition and hobbies and things I wanted to do on my own free time. And then, yeah, I was like, push was coming to shove. I was like, all right, well, I had to give up on that. And then I got that chance. So it was really cool.
Well, I think there are a lot of us who are so happy that you did get that chance. When are we going to get you to like the MCG or Lords or something like that?
My wife and I and our kids have tickets to go to Australia December 1st. I think we're going to do like 4 days in Sydney, and I got to go see where I used to live and all that stuff. And then we might hop on a flight to Melbourne. It would be around the time Big Bash starts, I think like December 7th or something like that.
Right.
We haven't planned it out yet, but we have tickets.
You have tickets. That's the main thing. Well, wherever you are, I'll find a way to be there and take you guys.
Yeah.
We'll
I'll let you know.
We can definitely sort that out. Back to your other home of Australia where you spent a few years as a kid.
I haven't been back since 2000. So it's been a while.
It has been a while. That's had its effect on you. You at least knew what cricket was. Start from the backyard of Linfield in Sydney to being the first American commentating on a World Cup. Jimmy O'Brien, Jomboy, you are, as we say in Australia, a dead set legend. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
He is a really interesting guy doing some incredible things. Jimmy O'Brien, Jomboy. I've actually done a story about him. It went out just before the World Cup. You can find it on Al Jazeera Sports, just all about his backstory and how he ended up creating this media empire. So go and check that out. And of course, if you want to have a look at the Warehouse Games, that whole series that I commentated on, well, I don't know if commentate is the right word, because I don't know what I did except get excited. But they're a wonderful community, the people who watch that sport, and they were incredibly welcoming. So go and check that out on YouTube. Really, really interesting stuff, combining, I guess, some of the skills of baseball with the gameplay of cricket, perhaps, might be how you can look at it. So that is on JohnBoy's YouTube channel. So there's a couple of things for you to check out there. Time for some questions. Thank you to everyone who sent questions in. I can't do all of them, but I'm going to try and get through a couple. I have to be mindful too. My mum said she didn't want the opening and closing segments to be too long. I'm trying to keep that in mind, Mum. It's good to know she's watching. Anyway, our first question from the Premier League Cricket Show. Hi. Asking, what's the strangest place you've had to file a cricket match report from, and any unusual Wi-Fi hotspots you've had to utilise? I mean, it's all about the Wi-Fi. Where I am currently, I was in a black hole yesterday where twice since I've been here, not only has the Wi-Fi gone out everywhere, like at the ground, there was no Wi-Fi and there was no phone signal. So I couldn't even hotspot, and it was so stressful because it happened at a really bad time. So it is all about the Wi-Fi. Hotspots help because you used to have to take a dongle with you, but now phones are so much better with hotspots. I don't know if anywhere's massively unusual. Cars, anywhere. I remember once filing a massive piece for Cricinfo on Virat Kohli while sitting in the passenger seat driving over the Blue Mountains, getting in and out of signal. By the side of the road, sitting down outside somewhere that I'm able to get some Wi-Fi signal. Lots of cafes, pubs, anywhere like that. I think probably one of was more stressful, but I look at it now, it's funny. The Wi-Fi at the MCG used to be so bad in the media box, so bad that I had to send a video match report. And the only way that I could do it, I just couldn't send it from the ground. It was going to take like 3 hours. So I ended up running into Melbourne, the CBD, going to Federation Square and sitting outside a bar using the public Wi-Fi in Federation Square, because that was faster than the actual media Wi-Fi at the MCG. They've sorted it out now, but you just got to be resourceful. Doesn't matter what you have to do, you just got to get it sent. Linda McCauley, thank you for your question via Instagram, asking about the pitches in this tournament, perhaps not giving the ICC the best chance of capturing, converting the coveted US sporting public. Have pitches been tough for high-scoring batting, or has the bowling fielding just been really successful at containing the scoring? Well, yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things. Obviously, the ground in New York, being a brand new ground, the drop-in pitch, not having time to settle, troublesome outfield, all of those things made a difference. I thought the pitch at Dallas was actually pretty good. If you're talking specifically about the US games, I don't know, because I think as a new sport, maybe you have to remember that anyone new watching cricket, I mean, they may be used to baseball, where how many home runs do you get in a match? Scoring opportunities. So that's one thing. And so I also don't think they have what cricket fans have to compare it to, particularly if you're coming off an IPL, watching the IPL, where we saw so many ridiculous scores in the last game. So I imagine if they are going to, do other things like this in the US, Olympics in 2028, they'll have to look at just making sure that the pitches are conducive to entertaining play. On the other hand, you know what? they were a bit of a leveler, and I kind of liked the fact that it did bring other teams into it. I was discussing with a colleague, you don't necessarily have to have out and out massive pace or whatever it is to cause trouble. Even if you've got decent pace, you just put it in roughly the right area and the pitch was going to help you out. I don't mind that. I actually found it kind of thrilling. So I understand your point. I can see a little bit of both ways, but it's something I'm sure they'll want to look at. Andrew Paskin asks, best food on the island? Well, here in St Lucia, I'm so lucky. You can see this apartment that I don't know how I managed to snag this, but it has been such a great space to be in for a few days. In fact, the only time I've left this apartment has been to go to the ground twice, once for press conferences and once for the matches. So I haven't eaten anywhere in the island except for here, but my amazing hosts, Tony and Ushi, they've just been incredible. Tony insisted on driving me down to the supermarket when I landed, absolutely exhausted. And I was able to just buy some basic fruit, yogurt, some salad stuff, so that I've been able to actually just have some healthy salads and breakfast. So that's been actually really good. So I've, just really enjoyed that. Food at the ground was great. The fish, super. Gareth Jones asked top 5 grounds in the world for their views. Gonna go 1, Dharamshala, no brainer, absolutely amazing. 2, at Newlands, also probably a little bit obvious. 3, unusual one, Traeger Park in Alice Springs, which has incredible views of the McDonnell Ranges, blue skies, picket fence, right in the middle of Australia. That is absolutely fantastic. 4, I'm going to go with Paarl. Actually, again, in South Africa, because, again, just a bit like Cape Town, perhaps not quite as dramatic, but more open skies and incredible sunsets. I thought it was absolutely stunning. 6, do you know what? I'm going to give a little bit of love to Worcestershire, who have been going through such a difficult time with their ground. But the view across to the cathedral is absolutely sensational, and I love it there. Unfortunately, I'm not sure how long they're going to be able to continue to play there, but it's an incredible view when you're sitting there looking across at the cathedral, the bells start pealing. That's pretty special too. Now, Sagar Ralapalli asks, how much interest or curiosity was there in the US, or especially US people who don't watch cricket in general, for this T20 World Cup? That gives me an excuse to plug a piece that I wrote, because I actually had a bit of a walk around near where I was staying on Long Island and chatted to quite a few people about it. That piece is also in Al Jazeera. So go and check that one out if you'd like to read that. There was curiosity certainly on Long Island because people were aware of them building the stadium in Eisenhower Park. And certainly for some of those people, it had piqued their interest. The story of USA cricket actually did cut through to quite a few of them. And when we were talking about the fact that USA could progress to the next round, they'd beaten Pakistan. It was a real underdog story and an American success story. People really started following it. And I think that's key, really. They love a winner. They love an underdog. They love, the Americans taking it to the rest of the world. So I think there was curiosity that became a little bit more of an interest. I also spoke to people locally who were of Indian or Pakistani heritage, and they said that their friends were asking them loads of questions, and all of a sudden people were much more interested in wanting to find out more about cricket. So that's completely unscientific. It's got a long way to go to really get mainstream. If USA have a good Super 8s section of the tournament, if they can cause another upset, I think that'll really help. But it's absolutely vital that they capitalize on that. So yeah, it's been quite interesting. Definitely something there. It's going to take a long time for it to grow and build into anything significant though. Lizard657 from YouTube, my first YouTube question. Hey, cool podcast. Thanks, Lizard. Wanted to ask what it was like working for the Jomboy Warehouse Games. How did it feel on a production side? Did you approach commentating it any differently than you would a professional tournament? It was such an incredible experience. I was so lucky to have Chris Rose to basically hold my hand throughout that whole tournament, because I mean, I often go into tournaments where I have not seen players much before, if at all. And so that is something I'm used to, and it's really, really challenging. But for this, there was the added part of not knowing the players. And because only some of them were professional players, it wasn't like I could look up Crick Info or even Crick Heroes or something like that to get anything. They did have some stats that were very helpful, but I feel like if I were to go back and do it again, and I hope I do, I'd love to, I just understand so much more about the backstories for the teams and the players and everything else, and I think that makes it really interesting. The production was unbelievable. It's incredibly professional setup, but also just the people around that whole thing. Everybody was cheerful. No one ever seemed stressed. Everyone was just having so much fun and was happy to be there. Just an amazing vibe. So the whole experience was one that I loved from start to finish. And yeah, what they've created there in the warehouse is just unbelievable. Make sure you go check it out. A question finally from Emmaville. Emmaville is actually my mum. That's her pseudonym, her online pseudonym. Don't tell her I told you that. She's asked a couple, of course, but I'll just pick one. It's, how do you choose your talents to interview, and how difficult is it to organise? Do you have to go through agents? Thanks, Emmaville. It can be really hard. But choosing them, it depends. If I'm doing something for Wisden Cricket Monthly, this month it's Darren Sammy. Sometimes it's their suggestion. We have a bit of a brainstorming thing about who would be good to get with timing of what events are on, and this obviously has to be in advance for a monthly magazine. I have got a lot of contacts. If I don't know the former player or player directly to contact, I might go through, I know someone who knows them, or I'll go through media managers. Occasionally I'll go through agents, but it's any way and every way. I'm so lucky because I know lots of people around the world. So there's usually someone I can ask to find out how I can get in contact with someone else. But it can be really challenging. Sometimes an opportunity just presents itself, really. And a lot of it's about timing. You think about who's got a good story, what's the right time to tell that story, are you able to get the access? But it can be really difficult. Sometimes people pull out at the last minute, or they say they're going to do it and then they just don't answer the next text message or whatever it is. So that can be quite stressful. For some things like Wisden Cricket Monthly, I have to have a backup plan every month. And the amount of stress that sometimes causes me is crazy, because the looming deadline is really something else. But, I keep going. And now I have to go because I'm off to Antigua for a bit. I haven't seen anything of St Lucia this time, but I was here before, so that's okay. And I'm wearing glasses today because I got a rather painful sty in my eye yesterday. And that is a sign of stress. I know that. It's because I've been working such long hours, probably having my contact lenses in too long, stressing about flights and the cost of things. That's probably got to me a little bit, and I know that when I start to have physical things that start going wrong. It has been good to be here and actually just hole up and work, which is all I've done since I've got here. Stay inside and go to the ground, because at one point the Wi-Fi went down, so I had nothing to do but sit and do my washing, which is great. There's a washing machine behind me. That was probably the most exciting discovery, because I was down to my last pair of clean knickers. Now I have clean clothes, and it's time for the Super 8s. Thank you so much for joining me again. I will see you shortly. Who knows with whom, who knows where, who knows when, but it'll be soon. We'll do another couple of these through the tournament, and I think we've got all the little hiccups ironed out. So this podcast now available on Spotify and Apple as well. I think a few different places. So please, you can really help me out by subscribing, downloading, giving it a like, share it amongst your friends, and please do send in your questions and your feedback. I really, really appreciate the support that you've given me. It's been really, really lovely to receive. So until next time, I'm off running between the wickets.